Nils, you wanted to do an introduction about the Big Eight, how this started, why we have Big Eight. Feel free to start with the initial thoughts on this massive exhibition.
Good that you didn't ask why we have dinosaurs. That's another question. The Big Eight was a major exhibition in Hong Kong 2022. And the initial spark was made in 2018, where myself and Christoph Kallmann from the Munich show, we were setting up an educational exhibition for the Asian premiere of Jurassic World 2, Fallen Kingdom, in the IFC Mall in Hong Kong, with an original T-Rex, an educational trail for the kids and the parents and everybody. And we saw that there was a need for a bigger blockbuster exhibition in Hong Kong because the people were very interested in the original T-Rex, and a lot of people attend to that educational path that we put there. And that was the initial spark for the Big Eight, because we had a lot of time working at night in the IFC Mall. So the mall was closed at 11 p.m. and we could work there till 5 a.m. And we had a lot of talks, and we thought, what will it take to make a major blockbuster exhibition in Hong Kong? What do we need? And then the idea of the Big Eight came up. It was a little bit adapted from the Big Eight or the Big Five you can see in Safari. Mm-hmm. And we had soon a wish list of dinosaur skeletons that we want to show in Hong Kong. The main goal was not to show replicas. We want to show the original skeletons. So the list was long, like we had Maiasaura, we had Utahraptor on the list. We want to show a Utahraptor block and other bigger, large-scale skeletons. The Big Eight, famous ones. The T-Rex was a must, and Triceratops. And so we started to get a list together. Then right away we started how to get the skeletons to Hong Kong. So logistic-wise, that was a main concern, how to convince the museums to give us their original scientific valuable skeletons to showcase them in Hong Kong. That was a major thing. I can tell the T-Rex was a lot of trouble. We had a lot of trouble with T-Rex to get a real T-Rex to Hong Kong. We want to have a quite complete original T-Rex there. And the Triceratops. These Cretaceous beasts were really our major struggles during getting the dinosaurs to Hong Kong. We had a T-Rex, and then it disappeared, I think, 3 weeks before the exhibition. We got this specimen loan cancelled. So we had to decide either to put a replica, but we could get a very nice T-Rex from another dinosaur museum, Dinosaur Park Altmetall from Germany, as a loan. That saved us. And the Triceratops was also complicated. We didn't manage to get a Triceratops skeleton loan. So we decided in the mid of the project, we decided to buy a Triceratops specimen that will later be in the collection from the Saurier Museum Ahrtal in Switzerland. And we bought this Triceratops and prepped it in 5 months for the exhibition.
To start at the beginning, why did you choose to go to Hong Kong and not like something Europe or US based?
So it was an idea because there were a lot of exhibitions ongoing in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong Science Museum had already hosted a lot of dinosaur exhibitions. And in 2018, it was not clear that we had the chance to attend to an exhibition that was held in 2022. That was a big celebration in Hong Kong for the handover of Hong Kong to China from the British government. So that was a 25th anniversary of that handover. And all over the city, all the museums planned special exhibitions. And we got good contacts in Hong Kong to a foundation, the FIS, the First Initiative Foundation. That is like a charity foundation that does a lot of exhibitions and other things for the local people in Hong Kong. And they managed to give the contact to the Hong Kong Science Museum, and so we started to plan this exhibition. That was the main reason we are choosing Hong Kong for this large-scale exhibition.
Okay. When going to Hong Kong, so I will just also start to share the screen because it goes step by step into the like planning phase, which I also wanted to reflect in the online exhibition. You went to Hong Kong, you had a venue chosen, which you never visited before, and you have like lots of concept behind it. So what was the biggest struggle with this venue? I will just share on the screen some of the initial floor plans. But what were your struggles like with this kind of venue?
As you can see, we chose then some skeletons we easily could access through our connections to the Sauer Museum Archive. So 5 skeletons came from this museum. And our main struggle in the Hong Kong Science Museum was that they want to put the special exhibition in the first floor. They had a special exhibition area there on the first floor, but the main problem with the first floor, that special exhibition area, was the ceiling height. The height of the ceiling was about 2.50 meters, 3 meters, and we were like, we never gonna put a T-Rex upright in there. We never put the Diplodocus or other major, bigger dinosaurs in there, that it looks really good. It would look like they're compressed in a small area. And lucky to us, the Hong Kong Science Museum planned a big renovation of the second floor. The second floor, you can see it here on the map, was the telecommunication and transportation exhibition area. So a lot of space. The ceiling height was way enough. I think it was over 10 meters. So the dinosaur skeletons would look awesome in that space. And we decided to go there because the renovations were ongoing and they already took out all the telecommunication exhibition and the transport exhibition. But there was a big but in the ceiling of that part of the transport exhibition. There was a big plane hanging from the ceiling, a big original Pan Am airplane in the middle of the museum. And we were like, in the beginning, we were like, okay, it's impossible. We have to take out that plane. And we had a lot of talks with our colleagues in the Hong Kong Science Museum, and it was impossible. So we planned the exhibition around the plane. And in the end, it made a very nice contrast for the dinosaurs. But in the beginning, it was a big concern from all of us that we had this airplane in the middle of the exhibition.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I included one of the pictures where you can see the airplane, but it's kind of, let's say ridiculous to see this massive airplane like next to the original skeletons in the same room. It's an awesome take when you see it. So yeah, like you saw the room, you never visited like on site before, and you had to deal with concept artists which was given to you, I guess, like he was just presented, which is Victor Wong from VFX Nova. But basically they did all the design and also the technical drawings like I'm showing here. How was the collaboration with them? Because I saw on the, for example, on the website from FIM that they are also hosting like more exhibitions from Victor Wong, so it's a person they know very well. So how was the work with them in this regard?
In the beginning, to be honest, it was quite difficult. Our team was quite small, so we had the team from Christoph Keilmann, and from our side it was me and our designers and Nizar as scientific advisor, and we proposed some design things. And from the Hong Kong Science Museum team, it was over 20 people. So when we had an online meeting like this, it was maybe 2 people of us or 3 people in the front row. We have 20 people of the Hong Kong Science Museum. And we had to figure out how to really worked together in the beginning. And it was quite interesting. We proposed in an online meeting nice designs and things and our ideas. They already had a nearly finished concept from Victor was really great. But the main problem was that they really want to use paleo art that they could bought from the internet, like a movie from this artist and an illustration from that artist. So we had it would have ended up in a complete mix of styles, you know. And we really managed to say, okay, through Nizar we know a very good paleo artist, Davide Boadonna, and we know a very good 3D animator, Fabio Manucci. We want to have it all from one perspective and from one look and feel, from one style, and all the panels and all the illustrations. So this was quite a journey that they accepted it, and it was already very short in time. I think it was 5 months before the exhibition opening, or everything has to be ready. And I know that Davide is a very good paleo artist, and he was working until his hands bleed. It was really crazy. He did all the illustrations in less than 3 months, and also Fabio did a lot of sort of animation movies. So what you can see now is one of the layouts Victor Wong did. I think it's quite nice, and in the exhibition it went out really great. And on the left hand, you can see this massive DC-3 airplane 10M thing hanging around from the ceiling. For us, the main problem was also we could not made any site visit before the exhibition started. So we had to plan it all online.
Yeah, so this is why I included this, was like all exhibits are removed except the airplane. So this is what you had to deal with, and it's quite a massive one. I also included like more of the concept art from the exhibition, which is in the end very close to the final one, like the final assembly, which we can see in the last room.
When you Karim, when you turn to the left back, you can see we have had a massive glass wall that was illuminated, separating. There was like a gangway between the two exhibition areas. We have the Cretaceous and the Jurassic was separated, and you can see we also have drawn some outline trees from the Jurassic and the Cretaceous. So my wife did all the outline trees, and the extra was also from Davide to make all the silhouettes from the dinosaurs, so they can etch it into the glass, and the glass was illuminated from below, so it was super nice. But it was hard for us to stop with the extras, you know. You can add a lot of extras to that exhibition, and at some point we really had to stop with these extras.
True.
And before I would hand over to Nizar a bit, I would also just speak a short moment about the difficulties we had in 2022. So everybody may remember the COVID pandemic, and as well the war started in the Ukraine. So Russia invaded Ukraine, and that was also a main concern to the whole team, because we had calculated, for example, the transport cost about 150,000, and these transport costs really like tripled in a short of time, you know. And you have to imagine we had a budget, and this budget was already really stressed out. Lucky to us, the Chinese or the Hong Kong government took over and covered these extra costs, because transport directly was impossible, and we had the COVID situation still going on.
Now, I guess this is also a really tricky one, not only for transportation, but also for working together with other people on site. So having these online meetings works fine, unless you have to assemble everything on site, I guess.
Yeah, it was crazy because we had to went to quarantine for 1 week when we arrived, and the Hong Kong airport was like in a zombie apocalypse. You saw all the airplanes were covered, and you really the Hong Kong airport was completely empty. You left the plane and you were like brought to a gangway where you have made a corona test directly on the airport, and then we were driven by taxis to the quarantine hotels, and then we had to say goodbye to Nizar and the rest of the team, and you be locked in a hotel for 1 week and doing every day the corona tests as well. During the setup of the exhibition, we had to attend to corona tests every day. So that was an interesting thing to set up the exhibition.
I guess so. Something you wouldn't like to repeat again, I guess.
So maybe Nizar, I can hand over to Nizar a bit. You can talk about we can already see the Spinosaurus excavation on the right, and on the left, David's artwork.
Yeah, so maybe, Lisa, first of all, thanks for your time. I'm happy to have you here. So what was your task within the exhibition with the preparation? And we have like from the excavation over the discussion up to the final artwork, everything in one screen. Yeah, let's start with your task on the whole thing.
Yeah, so Nils and Christoph approached me pretty early on in the process and asked me if I would be happy to take on the job of scientific director for this exhibition. And I've worked on other exhibits in the past, but this one was kind of like a pretty unique opportunity to essentially assemble the pantheon of dinosaurs, like some of the most spectacular dinosaurs out there. So it was pretty irresistible, and we had quite a lot of space to play with, and we had some financial flexibility as well. And I think one of the things that really attracted me to the project was also that we're going to showcase some really exciting science, right? So most of the skeletons we put on display were actually objects we were doing research on. So, we worked on the big Triceratops, we worked on the giant pterosaur, Hatzegopteryx, and we also worked on Spinosaurus, of course, which was the star of the Big Eight in many ways, because it was, this pretty unique display of the Spinosaurus in swimming pose. And so, so we wanted to capture the entire process from excavation to, fleshed out animal. And you can see some of those images there on the screen. Of course, the Spinosaurus dig site is a really special place. It is the only associated skeleton of Spinosaurus aegyptiacus in the world. It's still an active dig site. And so we included some of the footage from the dig site and the excavation, the preparation of the fossils. And we then showcased how you get from those fossil elements to a reconstructed skeleton to then, a fully digital dinosaur. And that was really fun. That's not something you often see in dinosaur exhibits. You don't often see this entire story for a specific skeleton. So that was kind of one of the most fun aspects, being able to weave ongoing research into the exhibit, and of course being able to showcase some of the most spectacular skeletons out there. One of the things I really enjoyed, I'm not ashamed to say, is that as scientific director I could do pretty much anything I wanted. So I didn't have to deal with lots of other, opinions on how best to tell the stories. Sometimes in some exhibits, you have too many cooks in the kitchen. So one of the great things here was that if I came up with something that I wanted to do, I would discuss it with Nils and Christoph, and we're usually on the same wavelength. I had some ideas about how best to mount the big pterosaur, for example. We can talk about that later on maybe. And they didn't say, oh, that's a crazy idea. They said, yeah, sure, let's do it. And we did. And it was really great. So I think that was really fun, not having to worry about too many other opinions and ideas. And so, as I said, it was a pretty unique opportunity to really tell the stories I always wanted to tell, because I'm not just a scientist. I like the storytelling aspect, and I wanted to make sure that people go on this interesting journey in the Big Eight, and that there are all these interesting stories of science and exploration and adventure and art and so on. And I haven't really been able to do that in this kind of formed on this scale before.
So you mentioned the artwork. So Niels phrased it like you brought an paleo artist and an animator with you. Where did you know the people from? And also, given the short time frame, like what made you feel? Because I have majority of people in my sessions are paleo artists. So what made you feel confident in that they can do the work in such short amount of time? And where did you know them from?
So I had to find people who are very, very good at what they're doing. And I also had to find people who are crazy, which is an interesting combination, but not that unusual, I suppose. And I had just the right people in mind. So I've worked with paleo artists, especially Davide Bonadonna, for a long, long time. And Davide is just really amazing because there are a lot of talented paleo artists out there. One of the things I always really appreciated about Davide is that he really understands anatomy. He used to illustrate human anatomy textbooks, illustrating blood vessels and skeletons and muscles and everything. He really understands anatomy. So it's not just that his art looks great, it's also that he really understands the anatomy of the animals, right? And that's one of the things we wanted to do. We wanted to showcase, the digestive system of Diplodocus. We wanted to showcase the different layers in a pterosaur wing. We wanted to show a lot of things that go beyond just showing a fleshed out animal, but literally peeling away the layers so you can look at the dentition of a Diplodocus or, various other things. So Davide was kind of my ideal candidate. And poor Davide had to do a lot. One day he sent me a picture of his hand. It was bandaged and he had like ice all over his hand. And he said, I'm doing everything I can. Nizar, the deadlines are a little crazy, but it was all worth it. I mean, he had a lot of fun, but yes, it was we were all pushing the limits of what's possible. I think in hindsight, if we had known just how crazy this was all going to be with deadlines and, the Ukraine invasion and COVID and travel restrictions and all sorts of other challenges, it was absolutely insane. So it all worked, to our limits, including Davide and Fabio Manucci, who had to put together these animated sequences under immense time pressure. But it was also so much fun and such an amazing opportunity that we all pushed through all the barriers and we made it happen. I really enjoy working with my paleo artist friends because to me, as a scientist, some scientists are happy to just write their scientific description with a few figures of the bones and so on, and that's it. To me, that's never the end point. I always want to see the fleshed out animal. I really want to understand what the animal would have looked like, and I want to share that with people. So I'm always very involved in the process. There's a lot of back and forth between David and myself, for example, but it's a process I enjoy. And so, yeah, I wanted to make sure that the paleo art is really top notch. And I think we pulled that off.
So I used the second room, like the first room was more like the concept and planning phase, with the Spinosaurus being the entry point, walking into the second room where I placed a bunch of the artwork which was used inside the exhibition. I tried to organize it a bit. We have Triceratops here, we have T-Rex, we have the Diplodocus. Also what you mentioned, we have like potential like embryos, we have like how the organs are placed within the animal. There's lots of things, I guess, that was not shown before like that. And also I placed, of course, scenes, but there are also lots of things like tail comparisons, like how does a Stegosaurus plate may have looked from the inside. So I guess you really wanted to push that. What was the main challenge here? Because it's things people never saw before in this kind of way.
I had a few ideas in my head about things I wanted to show. Sometimes it was just showing things in a way that hadn't been done before, visualizing things in a way that hadn't been done before. And we also had so that was one category, but then there was another category which was quite interesting and challenging, and that was really iconic images. So I think you just showed the Velociraptor and Protoceratops battle, for example. Or we had, yeah, there you go. That's the one. We also had T-Rex versus Triceratops image. And those are, of course, iconic encounters, and they've they've been done so many times in paleo art. And so I said to Davide, let's try to put a different twist on this. Let's try to showcase these scenes in a way that hasn't been done before. So that was an interesting challenge. And then there are some really unique things where I just had an idea in my head, and I was just like, how can we actually turn that into an image? One example would be the Spinosaurus dad with the little ones sitting on his head. That was originally inspired by a picture of a male gharial, a gharial croc with lots of little ones sitting on his head. And there was an image I saw. It was part of the Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. And I saw it years ago. And I always thought, there you go. And I always thought, I want to see a Spinosaurus version of this. Had never been done before. And that's what we came up with. So we had to come up with a plausible look for the little Spinosaurs that don't have big sails. That would not be very practical in their eggs, right? And, we came up with this scene that was inspired by a modern day photograph of a gharial, right? So we also had those, really unique, unusual things that were just somewhere in my head. And I thought now is the time to kind of, showcase them somewhere. So at these different categories, but we always wanted to do a fresh take. So we wanted accuracy, we wanted originality, and we wanted to showcase things in a way that really felt like people were entering our paleo art world. I wanted to make sure that everything, all the 2D art is by Davide, so that it really feels like it's the same style, it's the same feel, the same vibe. And I think that was really important to create that world, that kind of felt believable and, created the sense of familiarity as you walk through the exhibit.
Nils, did you have any involvement in the paleo art part of the exhibition?
Yeah, I was interrupting the Hong Kong Science Museum team to not choose these things, and we had to make a very strict time plan. So my side was more how are we going to do that in 3 months, and that was also on Christoph's side from the organization to really have a strict plan, like an Excel sheet. That was a paleo art master Excel, and we discussed this Excel sheet a lot. And it was also always like, okay, we had the deadline now. Are the animations ready? The paleo art is Davide ready? And sometimes it was like impossible. We know that, and it was just a little bit more of the controlling side, I must say, not a lot of influence on the pictures itself. So I left it all for Nizar and Davide to make the settings. I love the Spinosaurus with the small babies on top of the head. That is my favorite of the exhibition. But also what worked really, really great was some of the animations were just placed behind the actual skeleton. And Spinosaurus was the star, but the people also loved the Hatzegopteryx, the pterosaur. It was amazing. We never, actually it was a plan to roadkill the big Hatzegopteryx skeleton through the wall, not putting it under the ceiling as you would have normally put a pterosaur in a flying position. No, we choose to put it on the wall as a roadkill. So you can see it here, and the people were just amazed, and it always gave me chills when I went up to the second floor and saw the animation that was placed behind the skeleton with the projection, and it fits the size and the silhouette of that pterosaur. The animation was done by Fabio Manucci, and the Chinese colleagues put it really in place that matched the skeleton. That was a never before seen effect for me in an exhibition. And as Nizar already said, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. So the brigade was a big challenge, but it was a lot of fun. And we really made an amazing exhibit. We have the video of the Hatzegopteryx.
I inserted one of the videos, which can be like, I will not do it yet because it has the sound and everything, but if you visit the exhibit and it's click to play, so you can see the video, which is one of many from the exhibition. It's a bit downscaled to be suitable to be played, but gives a very nice impression. how much work is put into all the animation. With all the artwork, with everything prepared, before we go to advertisement and the live impressions, how was the assembly of everything? So now you went through the concept art, you went through creating animations to the artwork. How was the assembly in the end?
Assembly was quite good. There was an amazing team of workers from the Hong Kong Science Museum. They have external workers that put up all the displays, the big glass wall. You can see it on the left, where the edge dinosaurs are inside. Most difficult were the setup of the dinosaurs themselves. We had some communication problems in the end of the exhibition. So the podest height of the actual wooden frame around the dinosaurs should have been like 60 centimeters high in height. And in some meetings, there was always the 35 centimeters, and some they smuggled inside the meetings and smuggled inside the exhibition. So we had a major problem that the wooden podest, are not high enough, and the dinosaurs sank into the podest. So the base were actually cutting the feet off, and in one night we put some iron bars underneath the dinosaurs. Some of the dinosaurs were half assembled, and that was a major question, to find a solution. But when you have a good team, it's not a stop. It's just think about it, how we can solve it, and then we can set it up. And we did it. That was the main goal, not to stop and cry around, but we have to find a solution for that. That was difficult. Also, the setup of the originals. We had a lot of originals from Museum Ahrtal, Victoria, Hesperosaurus, Stegosaur kind of dinosaur, Allosaurus Big L2, which is one of the most complete Allosaurus skeletons in the world. So we handled very precious and scientific of a high value specimens. So this was a great challenge. And the rest of the assembly was really done by the team of the Hong Kong Science Museum and the external contractor. So in the end, it went up really, really great. One thing what I would not do in the same way, sometimes we had a little bit of a dark lightning. That was a bit sad because we have a lot of original skeletons. So we didn't have an original Spinosaurus skeleton. It was a printed cast, and that skeleton that was printed in a 3D printer, but we had original bones beside the replica, as well Hatzegopteryx. We didn't put the original Hatzegopteryx bones from Romania to the wall. We had also casted a replica on the wall, but also the Diplodocus HT1 was an original. That was quite difficult to set up, and the Triceratops willow, because Triceratops, they have heavy bones, and the sacrum is one of the heaviest bones in the dinosaur Triceratops sacrum. So it was challenging because we didn't also know about the machines we're going to use on stage in the Hong Kong Science Museums. That was difficult as well.
From not sure how much both of you were on site, but did the execution came very close to what both of you imagined, Nizar and Nils?
I think so. For me, I was amazed. Every time I went there, it gives me chills every time I see the pictures. And we always wanted to bring this exhibition also to Europe or to somewhere else, but it just didn't went out. It's all there. We could start another Big 8 in Europe for sure, but it's quite hard to arrange an exhibition like this again. And on the other hand, there was a lot of lightning. Sometimes it was too dark for me, but we had a lot of special effects. For example, on the plates of Victoria or the Stegosaur, you had the color change. That was quite nice. You have silhouettes of the dinosaurs. That was super nice. But I also go with my friend and the director of the Museum Ahrtal let the fossil impress the people. Don't try to play around too much. But for Hong Kong, it worked super nice, and for me also the Spinosaurus skeleton with the large scale LED animation wall behind it was mind blowing, no matter what.
Yeah, I agree with Niels. I think it was one of those rare moments where reality is even more jaw-dropping and exciting than, you know, your wildest dreams, right? So because you have a picture in your mind of what this is going to look like and feel like, but then when you see it in real in front of you, it was absolutely amazing. So it was everything we could hope for and a lot more. The giant pterosaur, for example, in my mind, I kind of knew what I wanted it to look like, but it's a whole other thing to stand in front of it and see it at full scale. Mm-hmm. And it's perfect. It's flawless. Everything is just the way you wanted it to be. So that was pretty amazing. And I also agree with Niels that, you know, something like the Big 8, it would be fantastic to bring it to Europe or, you know, anywhere else really. But it's really, you need perfect conditions, because this was like, you know, an amazing moment in time where this happened. Most places in Europe do not have the space or necessarily the money to put on an exhibit like that, right? But we had record numbers of visitors, and I know there's been quite a lot of interest after the Big 8. So we'll see. We might still be able to pull it off, but it's, you know, it's a lot of work. It's not the cheapest exhibit, but it is so amazing, and the number of visitors we had was just through the roof. So yeah, I think it was everything we wanted it to be in every possible criterion, right? It was the quality of the exhibit, the experience, but also visitor numbers and everything was just more than we could have dreamt.
So you mentioned the visitor count, which was amazing. Did you get, because it's like there is a language barrier, of course, did you get forwarded some feedback? Like how was the reception in the city itself and from the public?
The feedback was amazing, and maybe Niels can say a few things about that in a moment, but the feedback was amazing. I looked at all of the online reviews. I would just translate them. You can easily translate everything online, and it was exceptionally positive. It was pretty much, you know, everyone was giving like 5 stars out of 5. You know, people were absolutely blown away, and it was really hard to get tickets, right? Because everybody wanted to see this exhibit, and so sometimes online when you try to get tickets, they would not be available until several weeks later, you know. So it was a crazy thing. Everybody wanted to see this exhibit, and there was some restrictions on the number of visitors they would let in, again because of the pandemic restrictions and so on. So we would have had even more visitors if they had just let everyone in, you know. So yeah, it was an absolutely overwhelming response, and people absolutely loved it.
So I guess it's also from the range from, like I also put this image here, like from children to adults, everyone could take away anything from the exhibition, which is also a huge achievement to have.
Yeah, because it wasn't just, I mean, you mentioned a language barrier, and sometimes it's also a cultural thing. There are many exhibits in China, for example, where the basic rule is that you have to stuff as many things as possible into the exhibit so that people feel like they're getting their money's worth, right? They're going in there, and if they have a room that's filled with lots and lots of things, they go like, okay, that was worth the entrance tickets, you know, like I'm getting to see lots and lots of things. We, of course, took a very different approach, because we have essentially, I mean, we had lots of things, but it was essentially built around these 8-star creatures, and we gave them the superstar treatment. And you would walk in there, and there wouldn't be tons and tons of things necessarily, because we wanted to make sure that people see the Spinosaurus in swimming pose, you know. We wanted them to see the giant pterosaur in all its glory, not with lots of other things in front of it, you know, so that they really take it all in. And it worked beautifully. So that was one thing we pulled off. And yes, it's always interesting when you want to appeal to everybody. You want to appeal to the really small kids that can barely talk, but they already know some dinosaur names. And you also want to appeal to the elderly couple coming in there who are not interested in collecting dinosaur stamps as they go through the exhibit, which is what the kids will do, but very different things. And so you aim for all of these different levels. And, you know, it worked perfectly. Everybody, all the age groups, you know, going through the exhibit had an amazing time. And so that was really great for us to see that worked, because we wanted to make sure that everybody can enjoy this exhibit and will enjoy this exhibit, and it worked.
And of course, we also had a lot of educational programs during the exhibit, like guided tours, and we had some stamp stations, and of course you can scan QR codes, and you have small animations of the dinosaurs on your mobile phone and extra info, and there were sleepovers with the dinosaurs. They put small tents in the exhibition hall. The families could book that so they can sleep over with the dinosaur, and they had the tents with small lanterns in front of it. It was quite nice, and they did also paleo yoga in the morning, and you had the small kids from the schools with the dinosaur costumes making the yoga sessions. And also, it was fantastic for Hong Kong. The whole city was branded with the Big 8, all the metro stations, and the museum itself. It was insane. I went out, and the whole museum was like housed inside a big 8 advertising package. And the visitors, that was also insane, because we mainly had visitors from Hong Kong itself, because mainland China was not allowed to come to Hong Kong because of the COVID pandemic. So we had, I think, over 800,000 visitors in that time for the exhibition, though that was crazy. So if you can imagine how much more we could have without the pandemic, is insane. But also through that restrictions, and I think we only had 2 months when they decided to low down the corona restrictions, and people from mainland China could visit Hong Kong again. That was a minus, but I think with 800,000 visitors, that was really, really crazy, really crazy.
Yeah, I also think you could not know like when the restrictions came down and everything around it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just to put that into perspective for some people listening, I think it was even more than 800,000 in the end when all the numbers were put together. But those numbers are higher than, say, the British Museum in London would get in the same time interval. So it was absolutely insane. It was, one of the most successful outcomes in terms of visitor numbers, and that was with all the restrictions. So yeah, it was really, really amazing.
Nils, you mentioned all the advertisement. I have on the shared screen 3 different photos, which may give an impression how much advertisement there was. I have questions, 2 of them. For example, there is one set of images which is in a folder called Dino Hunt. Is it Dino Hunt called for a reason, or what?
It was an extra program. So I told in the beginning that the FIF, the First Initiative Foundation, that charity foundation, we worked also in 2018 for the Jurassic World premiere, made a lot of effort, and you can take the tram and the metro of Hong Kong, and different stations had different dinosaurs. So you can collect those dinosaurs and get free tickets and things like that. So the Hatzegopteryx was on the I think the station to the airport, well fitting, and it was amazing. You see all the things we did with Davide and we talked about, and then you enter the city, this amazing city of Hong Kong, and you see all your work, all your effort on the walls. You can maybe on the left you see that is like in the Hong Kong metro, you have really long ways to go and to travel, and you see everything was like full of Davide's artwork. It was insane. It was really insane.
This is really insane. The second questions I had, there was the mentioning of some kind of drawing contest. Maybe you have some context for us as well about this.
There was a special room for talks, and all the drawings from the kids were put in place and exhibited there. So it was a very family. Nice. Yeah, the feedback as well from people living in Hong Kong, just working with dinosaurs, or having just photographers and people like to go to the exhibition and send out the pictures. That was also very supportive. It was amazing to also get to know about all the people. Even in the beginning, the problems with Victor Wong and the design and things. In the end, I would say when would we work with Victor again to make another exhibition, or maybe the Big Eight in Europe? So I would love to bring that team back to do another Big Eight. It's really one of a kind thing we did there, and yeah, I can't wait to do it again.
This is a nice, like, I wouldn't say conclusion, but this is a nice thing to say. I have one question, because both of you really mentioned how amazing the work was, how amazing the exhibition was. But I also tend to ask people, like, wasn't it also frustrating? It's one of the biggest exhibitions. Were there time points where you said, okay, this is like just too much? Is there something it's cannot be handled, or it's really like close to be, closed down?
For my side, it was the organization of the T-Rex and the Triceratops. That was really insane. That is really was giving us a really hard time. Especially Christoph Keimann from the Munich show. It was sleepless nights. He traveled to several museums in the States and got refused. And he has a lot of connections, and normally it would be possible. And for the T-Rex we had in mind, I traveled to a place in Arizona and was checking the T-Rex and taking measurements of the podest and everything. And in the end, really, I think 2 weeks before we had to pack everything, the owner quit that loan contract, and we could not take the contract because there were some things in the contract you would not sign. And that was really hard for us. Organization of these two skeletons was insane. And also we took some extra effort. Speaking about the skeletons, we also got the original bones from Romania, from Hatzegopteryx. So Nizar drove to Romania with a friend of us and got a loan of the original Hatzegopteryx specimens. That was also crazy. Yeah, and another thing was that I was in Hong Kong, I think, for 3 weeks for the setup, 2 weeks till opening, and we're missing some Spinosaur bones. We had to take for loan from the State Collection of Bavaria in Munich. And Christoph was like, okay, we are flying home now for 5 days, and then we are going back to Hong Kong. In these 5 days, we take the Spinosaur bones, and then we are flying back to Hong Kong. So I was flying back to Germany. We picked up the bones, and 5 days after, we flew back to Hong Kong, going back to quarantine for 1 week and setting up the Spinosaur bones in the showcases. So some things were quite difficult for the exhibition. Some really extra effort.
Yeah, I think there were some of these difficult moments. I think Nils mentioned most of the highlights, having to find dinosaur skeletons in record time. There are all sorts of challenges and difficult moments, but I don't know about frustrating as such, because it was I think for all of us, it was such a privilege to get to work on this kind of ultimate dinosaur exhibit. And so I don't know if I ever felt truly frustrated. It is certainly one of the biggest exhibit projects I worked on. I worked on some big ones in the past with National Geographic, for example. There's a new one coming out this summer, actually, in Washington, D.C. But the Big Eight was absolutely unique in so many different ways. I think the only thing that I thought was maybe a little frustrating is that it happened during the pandemic. And so it was almost like it happened in a bubble, and the rest of the world, people couldn't travel there from, it would be very difficult to travel there from Europe. And so it was almost like we put on the greatest show on earth, but it was really just for the people of Hong Kong for the most part. And so, otherwise, I'm sure many people from Europe and America would have traveled to Hong Kong specifically for that exhibit, But with the quarantine and all of that, that was a little tricky. So that was probably the only thing that was a little frustrating, that, this amazing thing was happening, but against the backdrop of the pandemic.
First of all, thanks for your perspective on that. There's one question in the chat which is like, if you can do another Big Eight, do you prefer to use the same exhibit or maybe do something different this time?
Well, we have to do something different for sure. The concept will be pretty much the same, and we can also use some of the paleo art, but some of the specimens are not available any longer. So for the dinosaurs that were from Saurier Museum Aartal from Switzerland as alone, that was the last time they traveled to another exhibition, to another country, because they are now in permanent exhibition in the Museum of Zurich. And so these dinosaurs became a big donation from the director Kirby Sieber to the State Museum of Zurich. So Big L2, Victoria, the Stegosaur, and HQ1, as well some others, are not available for traveling again. But of course, we have other skeletons in mind. And I would say if we can do the exhibition again, we would choose some other specimens that are maybe not in exhibitions before. And yes, of course, we have to choose other things for new Big 8.
Is the selection, maybe this is also a bit back to the planning phase, selection of the dinosaurs, is it completely up to available skeletons or popularity? So some of them are, of course, like because of popularity, you have T-Rex, you have Spinosaurus, you have Triceratops, but what is also a reason why you, for example, decided against Pachycephalosaurus or something similar?
No, not really. I mean, I think different factors go into the selection process. And by the way, I mean, Spinosaurus is popular, but there are not really many Spinosaurus skeletons on display in the world, right? So it's not like T-Rex or Triceratops. It was a pretty unique thing. And even now, there's one Spinosaurus on display at the Field Museum in Chicago. There's one in Japan, but it's not a very common sight in dinosaur exhibits at the moment, even though it's a very popular dinosaur. I think, if we had an amazing Pachycephalosaur with an amazing story, and if it would be, it had to be considered a real fossil treasure. It had to be something really special. So it had a baby sauropod, which was really cool. There are not many of those. Hatzegopteryx, nobody had really put together a truly accurate reconstruction of a giant Ashdarkid pterosaur. Even the Quetzalcoatlus reconstructions you see are not that accurate. So that was another first, right? And the way we displayed it was another first. The Triceratops we put on display is the largest Triceratops in the world, or one of the three largest, anyway, it's a very, very large Triceratops. And, that made it very special, and so on. So every single one of the skeletons had to have an interesting story to tell. It had to be something really special. We're not going to put, no offense, but we're not going to put an Edmontosaurus on display or, a Protoceratops that, we're not going to put like super common dinosaurs on display. They had to be like dinosaur royalty in the sense that they're rare, really well preserved. The Stegosaur, Hesperosaurus we had on display, skin preserved that was put on display. So I think the criterion is not necessarily popularity. It's really, is this the kind of specimen you would put in the pantheon of dinosaurs? Is this something really special? Does it have an interesting story to tell? Those are the main things we're looking for.
And we had a long list. We also tried to get a Utahraptor block from Jim Kirkland. Nizar was talking to him, but it's quite difficult, insurances, and we are talking a bit about transporting Mona Lisas from the Mesozoic over the ocean to Hong Kong. So every dinosaur we discover is quite unique, and some of the museums just refuse to loan the original. So this is really, really hard to get. We also had a talk, Christopher and myself, we went to Berlin to meet the Mongolian ambassador to get the fighting dinosaurs. It went out that we got a beautiful copy of the fighting dinosaurs, and the Mongolian party was also there for the exhibition opening, what was very, very nice. But it was impossible. Also, Mongolia is quite close to China to get the original fighting dinosaurs to the exhibition in Hong Kong. But also we dream of those specimens, and we had a dream list, of course, of specimens we want to have, and some were just impossible, and some we made possible, like the Hatzegopteryx. That was also crazy, traveling to Romania, and a friend of of us set up the skeleton. Greetings to Blandine. She was helping with the skeleton setup of the Hatzegopteryx and traveling per train with the original fossils to Munich, that we could fly with the original fossils of Hatzegopteryx to Hong Kong. That was also difficult. You can imagine we had some of the original fossils were in our hand luggage, and we had to go straight to the customs and declare what we have, and said, okay, we have the papers officially, and we are now importing the original Hatzegopteryx bones into Hong Kong. And yeah, that is extra I thought we took for the exhibition. And for a new exhibition, I think we should rethink. You have to have the important stars of the Cretaceous and the Jurassic inside the exhibition like this, but I'm also keen to see new dinosaurs.
I guess I would also be very keen to see new ones. I'm also a fan always of seeing new stuff, and maybe dinosaurs which are not very well known, which is something I'm very drawn to. I will go through the chat questions. Maybe this is more to Niels. How did you negotiate Tony, Willard, and Big L2, and I guess also HQ1? Were you also, maybe as a context, were you working with them already at that time?
Yes. Christoph Keimann from the Munich show is working with the Sieber family from the Sauropod Museum for a long time, over 30 years, excavating dinosaurs with them, and always showcasing some of the dinosaur specimens in Munich during the Munich show, and traveling for those specimens from Sauropod Museum Hartel is nothing new. So they already began to travel very early. So Big L2 was premiered in, I think, 1999, and excavated was in 96, and so it was quite common for Kirby Sieber and the Sauropod Museum Hartal to loan their originals for exhibitions. So the connection was great, and the idea also was that Willard will stay in the Sauropod Museum Hartal after Hong Kong. So it was a donation from Christoph Keimann from the Munich show to the Sauropod Museum Hartal as a loan. So it was a physical loan. They got a dinosaur. So for a loan, lending all the original specimens, and the timing was quite good because Kirby Sieber already did this donation to the museum in Zurich, to the State Museum of Zurich, and we had to demount all the skeletons for the new exhibition in Zurich. So we took the chance, put down Big L2, put down Victoria and the other specimen in Sauropod Museum Hartal and traveled them to Hong Kong. And that was a great chance for the Big Eight to show those dinosaurs one last time in another museum, then in the new Natural History Museum of Zurich. So it's just, it was, because it's just family business, it's just, each other for a long time, and this made this possible, this loan to Hong Kong. Even Tony Baby, that is one of the most complete sauropod babies. It was quite amazing to handle all those famous originals, I can say.
I guess so. And I guess also really thankful to have them also, most of them from the same source, so it also may have simplified some things along the way. There's one thing I was wondering, you mentioned, like both of you mentioned, like a very short amount of time for preparing paleo art and setting everything up, which is like 3 months roughly. What I was wondering, you had this idea already in 2018. What led to the very short time frame of setting everything up in like 3 months to finish it?
Yeah, that was the problem, that they already had a finished concept. So, in the beginning, it was like, okay, the Hong Kong Science Museum was the venue for the exhibition, and we were in parallel working on exhibition design for the exhibition. And we didn't know that the team in Hong Kong already had like a finished design. And then we had to really talk to them again and again to get our idea of getting all the paleo artists involved into their minds. Because budget-wise, it was, of course, higher to make new drawings all from one paleo artist instead of buying, I would say, cheaper, old-fashioned, outdated paleo art from the internet. That was budget-wise just discussions. It took a long time to convince them that we should do it like this. Then we got the go, because budget-wise it was not planned, but we really want to have it like this, and we pushed it a little bit, and in the end everything went well, but this made the time running out. As well, we had to prep the Triceratops in Ahrtal, and parallel we had to talk about the budget and get the new budget signed from the Hong Kong Science Museum and the other people involved in the exhibition. So that was the main reason.
This really makes sense. Do you know from people who, from this kind of exhibitions, take so much that they go into the field of paleo art or paleontology, which is not mainly related to this exhibition, but maybe also related to other ones you worked on?
Yeah, I think, of course, it gave some influence to other paleo artists, and every time I really love what we have now with your virtual exhibition, because you can revisit this exhibition again. And I think, as Nizar mentioned, it was a little bit in a bubble. So it was some things were shared on social media, but it was not really that we present all the exhibition images and paleo art at once and the videos. So that was something that was a little bit, a pity that we really had that major paleo art also in the exhibition, but we only could share it online. But I always get positive feedback from the online postings, so it's quite popular outside Hong Kong right now, hopefully.
So I guess all in all, we had like a very nice overview for from the beginning to the end. It was very nice having Nizar here. It's a really nice time frame to talk about this exhibition. And I guess we couldn't talk about everything it entails. There's so much to tell about the artwork. Maybe if we catch the artist, we can talk about this one another time. But it was really nice to talk to you both.
Thank you for making it happen. I'm very glad and appreciate that you put it online to revisit the Big 8 online, and that's great. I will share it a lot of times until you cut off the exhibition and put something new.
But then I would conclude the session, and of course, thank you all the listeners for the support. Thank Nizar and Nils both for joining. Also, I know Nizar joined on short notice, so I was very happy about this one.
My pleasure.
And I would be very happy to have both of you either as a listener or speaker in another session again.
Thank you so much. And if you have time, visit Museum Ahrtal in Switzerland.
It's amazing.
We have some originals. Karim was already there, and we are just prepping some new dinosaurs for maybe an upcoming Big 8 in Europe or elsewhere.
Yeah, if you can. It looks from outside, it looks small, and it has so much to offer. It's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you, Karim.
Then have a nice evening or day or morning, wherever you are, and see you another time.